तो किसी ने पूछा कि गीता में क्या है। वो कहते गीता में सब कुछ है और जो नहीं है वो कहीं नहीं है।
बिल्कुल।
तो मेरे दिल को ये बात छू गई कि जो गीता में नहीं है वो कहीं नहीं है। तो ऐसा सौभाग्य विरले लोगों को ही मिलता है, ये आशीर्वाद विरले लोगों को ही मिलता है। तो ये आज सभा जो है वही उन विरले लोगों की है जिनके ऊपर प्रभु की अपार कृपा है। और धन्यवाद है ब्रिज जी का कि उन्होंने ये माध्यम बने हुए हैं प्रभु कृपा के हमारी तरफ भेजने के। तो ब्रिज जी, ज्यादा समय ना लेके आपको एक बार फिर निवेदन है कि अपने मुखारबिंद से हमें कुछ ऐसे ज्ञान की तरफ लेके जाओ ताकि हमारा जीवन और ज्यादा कारगर और सुखद और सुखी हो सके। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सभी का, ब्रिज जी।
धन्यवाद राकेश जी फॉर योर काइंड वर्ड्स एवरी टाइम। देवेंद्र जी और सभी को मेरा नमस्कार।
मैं ये कहूंगा कि ब्रिज जी हमें ब्रिज नगरी में ले जाओ।
और सभी को दिवाली की शुभकामनाएं। दिवाली सबने मनाई और इस बार तो दिवाली थोड़ा और ज़्यादा अच्छी तरह से मनाई गई क्योंकि पटाखे भी चले। नॉर्मली हर साल दिवाली पर पटाखों पर बैन लग जाता है। बैन लगने के बावजूद भी दिस टाइम आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल क्रैक्ड द क्रैकर्स बेसिकली। सो एनीवे, सबको हैप्पी दिवाली और हैप्पी न्यू ईयर आल्सो। तो टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू start now. I'm going to speak in English now today, as discussed last time. But since I think Poonam ji and her husband are not here, maybe let us see how it comes. So we are going to start today the chapter 8 of Gita. यहाँ पर क्या आ रहा है?
मैंने वो कैप्शन शुरू किया है, कैप्शन आ रहा है, जो आप बोल रहे हो वो आ रहा है नीचे लिखा हुआ।
अच्छा, हाँ वो ठीक है, करेक्ट। यहाँ
तो हिंदी में रखूं इसको, इंग्लिश में रखूं?
इंग्लिश में।
ठीक है जी, ठीक है।
ठीक है जी। So today we are going to start on chapter 8. We had finished chapter 7 in our last episode. And the title of chapter 8 is Akshar Brahm Yog. अक्षर का जो मीनिंग है, the meaning of अक्षर is indestructible, meaning अविनाशी, which cannot be destroyed. So this title, chapter 8, is about अविनाशी भगवान. Brahm is Bhagwan basically. So this chapter is about that. And this chapter starts with Arjuna's questions. If you remember, in last 2 verses of chapter 7, Lord Krishna had introduced some new terms. 6 or 7 terms he had introduced, which Arjuna did not know the correct meaning of those terms. So in first 2 verses, Arjuna asks the questions from Lord Krishna about these terms, what are the meaning of these terms. And those terms what Lord Krishna used in last 2 verses was, what is Brahm? Kim tad Brahm? Brahm kaun hai? What is that Brahm? Then what is Adhyatam? What is the meaning of karma? In chapter 7, last verses, he had used the word karma also, although everybody knows meaning of karma. But the meaning of karma in the last 2 verses was in a different way. Then he asked, what is Adhibhut? And what is Adhidev? And what is Adhiyagya? And the 7th question was that how we can remember God or focus our mind on God at our last moment when we are near our death. So what Bhagavan had said in that verse was that if you remember God at your last moment, you will certainly attain me. So Arjuna asked question, how we can remember God at our last moment. So these were the 7 questions which are asked by Arjuna in the 2 verses, first and 2. Now Bhagavan starts answering these questions in next verses. In first verse, he answers 3 questions. First is Brahm. What is the meaning of Brahm? Brahm is basically the name given to the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, who is immutable, he is permanent, infinite, and limitless, is not subject to change. That's why in that shloka he has used the word Aksharam Brahm Paramam. कि जो ब्रह्म है वो अक्षर, अक्षर मतलब अविनाशी. So this is the meaning of Brahm. He has told the Brahm is the Supreme Lord, immutable, permanent, infinite, limitless, and is not subject to change. And Param, it is the ultimate truth. Param Satya जो है वो ब्रह्म है. Second, he answers about Adhyatam. What is the meaning of Adhyatam? Adhyatam is basically the soul, Atma, residing in each one of us. So that is who is the awareness, the consciousness, the Atma, the soul, whatever you may call it. That is Adhyatam. The subtle body keeps the physical body active and alive due to this Atma inside us. And this soul in the body, what is in every body, there is a soul. That soul is called Jivatma. In Vedas, in Vedanta, is called Jivatma because that soul gets united to your body. That's why it is called Jivatma. So that is Adhyatam. Now, the difference between Brahm and Atma, Atma is with respect to one body, whereas Brahm is with respect to the whole cosmos, the whole universe. And Brahm is basically the creator of this universe. He provides consciousness to the entire world. Whereas जो Atma है, that provides consciousness only to that body in which it resides. So this is the difference between Brahm and Adhyatam, Brahm and soul. Third, he replies about karma. Karma here he meant was these religious rituals. Whatever yagya, havan, whatever we do, those are called karma here. And due to those karma, those rituals, the development of the world takes place. The population grows. Because when you do yagya, when you do all these oblations you offer in havan, that take a subtle form and reach the sun. And through the sun, the rains occur. And because of rain, all this vegetation, the herbs, the fruits, etc., they grow. And these food items are basically result into ultimate growth of population, the development of the world. So those actions, those rituals here are called karma, and those karmas here are not separate from God because they are done for the sake of God. Then in next verse 4, he answers 3 more questions. First is the Adhibhut. Adhibhut means the all physical bodies, the all manifestations of the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, space that exists in this world, in this universe, and they constantly change. They are called Adhibhut. So this means that world which is visible to us, which is inert, which is temporary and changing, is called Adhibhut. And Bhagavan says that Adhibhut is me only. I am that Adhibhut. So this world, the whole world also is him. Then he answers about Adhidev. Adhidev is the universal form of God, the Paramatma, who presides over all the celestial bodies and encompasses the entire creation. So that is called Adhidev. And Adhiyagya is the supreme divine personality who dwells in the heart of all living beings as Paramatma, as the supreme soul, or whom we call as Antaryami. Because of sitting in our body, in our heart, along with the soul, one is the soul, Paramatma also is in our body, and as Antaryami, he keeps record of all our actions, all our thoughts, all our deeds, and gives us results according to that. So this is how he has described these 6 terms in the 2 verses. Now, the last question was how we can remember God at the last moment. He answered that question in next 4 verses from 5 to 7. First, he says that one who always remembers the Supreme Lord, even while leaving his body at the time of death, he certainly attains me. Because, and this attains me means attaining my supreme abode, must have heard, Param Dham jise bolte hain. And it is only figurative. It does not mean that there is a place called Param Dham and you will reach over there. It's just a figurative. This just means being non-separate from God. And that you become one with God, and that itself is called basically moksha. So this is, if you remember God, he says, at your last moment, you will certainly get moksha. Now, remembering God at the last moment of your time, of your life, is possible only when you keep your mind and intellect centered on God continuously throughout your life. Because if whatever you have been thinking of at your last moment, same thoughts, same desire will come to your mind. So if you have not been thinking of God throughout your life, you have not been devoted to him, you have not been remembering him, you cannot remember God. So if you keep thinking or focusing your mind, keep the God in your heart, in your mind, always remember God is within me, only then you can remember God at the time of death. So then he says, because why we cannot remember? If we, whatever thoughts, whatever feelings it dominate us, our mind of a person during the lifetime. So that only you will remember, and your next birth also will depend upon that what desire or what thought has crept into your mind when you are about to leave this body. So therefore, it all depends upon what you have been continuously thinking of. In Skand Puran also it is mentioned that it is not possible to remember God at the time of death if you have not practiced that in your lifetime. As we say that, oh, it's too early. Maybe when we get retired, our children get married, then we can start remembering God. It's not possible. So unless and until you remember God every time, whatever, from the day you start working, whatever you gain your consciousness, then only you can remember God at the last moment. And एक कथा है पुराणों में, किंग भरत, आपने सुना होगा. So there is a small story which I will just say in few minutes. When he was, in the stage of Vanprastha ashram, he renounced his kingdom and went to the forest to do tapasya. When in one day, hearing the roar of a lion, a pregnant deer jumped into the river. And as soon as she jumped, she gave birth to a baby deer. And King Bharat saved that baby deer from drowning and brought that baby to the hut. And gradually he became so attached to the baby deer that he forgot his sadhana. And when he died, he only thought of that baby deer. As a result of that, he got the new life as a deer. He was born as a deer. So it is just told as a story that whatever thought comes to your mind, you have been attached to, you have a certain desire which remains unfulfilled, and it will come to your mind. So you will take birth so that you can meet that desire. So that is how Bhagavan says that you should remember God all the time. And then he gave this same advice basically in verse 7, then the advice is, and this is the central teaching of Gita, in fact. I mean, when we say how we can remember God at the time, we have to do our work, we have to do our duty, as we were just discussing. People are busy in their social duties, in their family life. They don't have time to come to this talks or this discourse. But he says that perform your duty in whatever field you are, but remember God all the time. Dedicate your mind and intellect to me. Bhagavan Krishna says to Arjuna, fight this war by keeping me in your mind all the time. So this is the central teaching. Perform your worldly duties, but always keep your mind focused on God. So this is one of the central teaching, and what he says, I mean, this is why Arjuna had chosen to keep Krishna as his Sarthi, so that he knows that Krishna will always be in front of my eyes. He will be always with me. So this is basically very, very important. And when you keep in front of your eyes, you always remember God, the Maya will not delude you. You will not be deluded by Maya. So what he says is, do your duty with one hand, and with other hand, hold Bhagavan. And when you finish your duty, hold Bhagavan with both your hands. So this is again a very important message which has been given by Lord Krishna in Gita. संत कबीर का भी एक दोहा है जो मैं यहाँ पर आपको सुनाऊंगा. सुमिरन की सुधि यो करो ज्यों गागर पनिहारी, बोलत डोलत सुरती में कहे कबीर विचारी. Panihari, you know very well, a lady who fetches water carrying a pot on her head. And when she carries a pot on her head and she walks down the hilly areas, she keeps talking to her friends. But the water in the pot does not spill. Because although she's talking this thing, but her mind is always on that picture that water does not get spilled over. So our life, our daily activity should be like that we can perform all our worldly duties, all our social life, all our domestic, personal work, but always keeping God, Bhagavan in our heart, in our mind. So this is again what Kabir has said. And so then he has answered now all the questions of Arjuna in these verses 7. Now in verse 8, he tells him the 3 methods how to attain God. In verse 8, so these 3 methods are, number 1, Abhyas Yoga Yuktena, practice Karma Yoga. And this is the primary method. He never said abandon your work, abandon the battlefield, abandon your duties. No, keep practice Karma Yoga, do your duties, but fixing the mind on God. So this practice should not be done at a fixed time or a particular time or for a particular duration or at some intervals off and on. It has to be done continuously, 24 hours a day. So this is the first method. Second is Chetsa na anya gamina. While involved in the practice of Karma Yoga, one should not let his mind wander away from the primary goal of union with Atma. That always keep your mind inside your heart, where Atma is within you. So, Chetsa na anyagamina, your mind should not go anywhere else, not to the outside world, but towards inside. Third is anuchintayan. While remembering Bhagavan, always remain absorbed in his devotion, constantly engaged in devotion. Once you remain constantly engaged like this, your mind will become pure. And such souls will receive the grace of Bhagavan. And once you receive the grace, you will get liberated from this world. You can get moksha. So we can meditate upon God in any form, in any of his abode, in any of his lila. भगवान जब भी अवतार लेते हैं वो लीलाएं करते हैं. You can basically meditate upon any of these three, and there is no difference between them. So you can meditate upon one of them, so whichever connects your mind with God, and consequently your mind will get purified. Now we proceed further. In verse 9 and 10, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna how we can meditate upon God. This subject was touched upon in chapter 6 also, and he further elaborates it in these 2 verses. So before that, how to meditate upon, he first describes 8 attributes of Bhagwan. भगवान की जो 8 विशेषताएं हैं, attributes, he first described those in verse 9. And those 8 attributes are, first he says, कवि. तो भगवान को यहाँ पर एक कवि का दर्जा दिया गया है. Who is कवि? Because he can, by his imagination, he can see the past, present and future also. Like Maharishi Valmiki was a kavi. He wrote Ramayana, although he was present during that time, but sitting in his hut, in his ashram, he wrote Ramayana. Whatever has happened, whatever was happening, and what happened in future. So all these he could imagine and think of and write. Same thing Maharishi Vyas. He wrote all the Vedas, all the Purans, all the Bhagavatam, etc. So he has described, this is the first attribute of Bhagwan is Kavi. Second, Bhagwan के बारे में Puran. Puran means ancient. He is Adi Purush. He is beyond beginning and end. He is eternal. He is ancient. Sanatan. Third is Anushasitaram. He is the controller of the universe. Everything in the universe is under his control and governed by his laws. He is Antaryami. He rules all the human beings according to their deeds. And because of him only, this dharma exists. Then, fourth is Ano Aniyam Samma. He is subtler than the subtle. He is subtler even than an atom, about which you cannot think, you cannot feel, you cannot see. He is even subtler than the soul, because he is the soul of all souls. He is Paramatma, Param Atma. Then Sarvasya Dhataram. He is the sustainer of all, just like an ocean, which is the sustainer of all the waves inside. So he sustains everybody. Then Achintya Rupam. His form is divine, is beyond our imagination. He is beyond our senses, and we cannot comprehend it by our mind. That's why he is called Achintya Rupam. And then the 7th one is Aditya Varnam. He illumines this whole universe as a sun. And the 8th one is Tamsa Parastat. He is beyond the darkness of ignorance. Just like sun can never be covered by the clouds. It may appear to us for some time, but sun always, it can be out of our sight, but it is there. Similarly, although the Lord is in contact with the Maya, but Maya cannot control, Maya cannot cover Lord. So this is 8 attributes, and these are the divine forms and divine qualities of Supreme Lord. And we can surrender to Lord in any one of these attributes. That's basically, we can meditate upon the Lord on any one of these attributes. So now in verse 10 to 13, he explains how we can achieve that. He describes in basically that how we can meditate upon Bhagwan. What he says is that when we leave the body and focusing the mind engaged on God, and that time, if a yogi practices the breath control, and he keeps practice to hold the breath in the middle of his forehead, between the eyebrows here, and steadily remembering God, he will certainly reach me. This middle of the eyebrows here is called Bhrikuti, in fact. And this is also called Dhyan Bindu. This part is considered to be a place of steady thought. So when a yogi who is immersed in pure devotion, in meditation, and his mind becomes completely peaceful and still, so by the power of yoga, his breath can be situated in the middle of this thing. And in such a state, this is called deep meditation. In deep meditation, your breath can center here. And once that situation is attained, you reach the state of a perfect yogi and you attain God. And then again, he describes that basically that all these ascetics, they follow the vow of celibacy and renounce worldly pleasures. In Vedas, the God is addressed by many names, as you all know, is Brahm, Paramatma, Parameshwar, Ishwar, Bhagwan, Satpurush. These are all names of one God. God is only one, but they are different names. And in Vedas, God is also referred to as Om. Om is basically means which is eternal, imperishable. Everything else is transitory and changing. And by pronouncing Om, all the mantras of Vedas start with Om. And by chanting Om, many sages and saints have reached the state of perfection. Om को संस्कृत में प्रणव भी कहते हैं. Pranav is a sound which is produced by chanting Om. And he says, it made it very, very clear, by concentrating on Om, on meditation, if you can even concentrate or focus on Om and you chant Om, you can reach the Brahmi state. That Brahmi state means, again, the state of attaining the Brahm. And so this is how you can control the mind. You have to take a vow of celibacy. And celibacy, again, you know very well, it's brahmacharya, that completely free from the feeling of sensuality, thoughts, etc. And then in verse 12, he says how one has to reach that stage, that how we can reach that state. First, he says that one should restrain all the 9 gates of the body from normal outgoing tendencies. As you know that our body, we have 9, we call this, it's a city of 9 gates. Our body is called a city of 9 gates. And I think you all know what are those 9 gates. And so you withdraw all these 9 gates from their worldly tendencies and focus the mind on God. And on God means the God is in your heart region. So focus your mind in your heart region. That means withdraw your mind from the world outside, but bring it inwardly, inside your heart. This is how you can focus your mind upon God. And so because we all know that all this, our communication with the world comes to us through our senses. All this, when we hear, when we see, when we touch, when we taste, this is how we communicate with the world. So, and once we communicate with the world through our senses, our mind starts thinking about it. It gets attached to it. And because it gets attached to it, we start thinking about that again and again. And that's how we come into this cycle of birth and death. So this controlling your senses, focusing your mind is very, very important to attain the state of that perfect yoga. So that yogi who thus gives up his body at that time by chanting Om, just one syllable Om, and meditating on the Lord with this chanting, attains the ultimate liberation, the ultimate moksha. So as I said before, Om represents the formless Brahm, this Nirakar form of Brahm, who is Nirguna. The sound Om pervades the entire creation, basically. So, and it is stated in the Vedic scriptures that at the beginning of creation, God first created sound, and then the space, the sky was created, and then the rest of the creation came. So that primordial sound, which was at the beginning of the creation, because it started with sound. So that sound, the beginning of the creation, the sound which was that sound was holy Omkar, Om sound. And in Sanskrit, this Om or Pranav is also called Anahat Naad. What is Anahat Naad? Now the sound, if you close both your ears with your thumb for some time, and that sound, what comes in your heart, that is called Anahat Naad. So this is the way how he has described to do meditation, to do chant Om, etc. Then now from 8th to 13th verse, Lord Krishna has explained about this meditation of a formless, attributeless Bhagavan, Nirakar form of Bhagavan. He has told about Om, chant or concentrate on any of his attributes, like what I have described, 8 attributes. So these are all Nirakar, Nirgun, form of Brahm, form of Paramatma, form of Bhagavan. And it is very difficult, in fact. It's very easy for anybody to say, you concentrate on Om or concentrate on Bhagavan in these aspects. It is not easy to concentrate on a formless, on a Nirakar Bhagavan. So therefore, in chapter 14, he tells about an easier method, a method by which God can be easily attainable. And that method is a devotion or bhakti of Sagun Sakar Bhagavan. Bhagavan in a human form, like Lord Krishna, Lord Rama or Vishnu, in whatever form you can see him. So and that is called bhakti, in fact. So far for Nirakar, Nirgun is not bhakti. That is called meditation. That is, when we talk of bhakti, bhakti can be only of a form, of somebody whom you can see, whom you can in front of your eyes. So that is basically like last time, I think Rakesh ji had asked a question, but it's bhakti. It will be explained in this chapter and the next chapter also in much details. I had just said. So bhakti is, again, because you can do bhakti only of once you know somebody, once you can see. So you can love somebody whom you can see. Otherwise, you can't love anybody. So this is the method what he tells in basically in verse 14. So he's emphasizing upon the bhakti yoga now. Earlier dhyan yoga, gyan yoga, karam yoga. Now he is emphasizing on the bhakti yoga. So you can concentrate your mind on any human form of Bhagavan with an unwavering mind. So in this type of bhakti, there is no need to practice meditation. Meditation is a very difficult job. It requires a lot of lifetime of practice. So if you do bhakti, does not require meditation. It only requires that you have to surrender yourself completely to that Bhagavan, whomsoever you believe in. So this is called Ananya Bhakti. Your mind is nowhere else except on that human form. If you believe in Lord Krishna, your mind should be on Lord Krishna. Can be on Lord Rama or anybody. So in basically in Ramcharitmanas also, Tulsidas ji ने कहा है, एक भरोसे एक बल एक आस विश्वास. Meaning is that I have only one strength, I have only one faith, and I have only one refuge, and that is Lord Rama. So, and in Narad का जो एक भक्ति दर्शन सूत्र है, that's a complete, the Shastra on Bhakti Yoga. And in Bhakti Yoga, in that Narad Bhakti Sutra also, it is mentioned that Ananya means there is no other shelter except God, whomsoever you believe. So such a Bhakt in this shloka has been called as Nitya Yukta, who is endowed with a mind that is always tranquil, always peaceful, whose mind is always under control and remains always steadfast upon Bhagavan. So we all make this mistake. We only remember God for some time. We do puja, we do rituals, but then immediately we fall into our social duties and we all starts going after the worldly pleasures, and the focus on God disappears from our mind. And that's why we don't get success. And that's what Bhagavan says. The person who remembers God in any form and with a calm mind and remains absorbed in devotion to Him, that devotee connects with me. He becomes united with me. So this is basically the easiest method, a bhakti yoga told by Bhagavan in verse 14. Then in verse 15, he says that there are such great souls who have been their Bhagavan Ananya Bhakt, they never gain another birth. And another birth means again you are into the cycle of this sorrow and miseries and like that. So, but once you reach that God realization, your soul gets liberated from this cycle of life and death, and it reaches the divine abode. So this whole world is called an abode of sorrow. It is non-eternal. We always face throughout our life a lot of physical and mental sufferings. We can suffer due to three things. One is from our own body, when we fall sick or any problem. We can also suffer because of our neighbors, because of our surroundings. And third is we can suffer also because of natural calamities which are not in our control. So these are the three ways where this thing, and the death is really painful. Nobody knows basically what pain you suffer during that time. And whatever happiness we enjoy is only for a short period. And because of all these sorrows, basically they make us to realize that these sufferings and sorrows and this whole world is so temporary. And that's why they lead us to path of this God realization, the spiritual path. So so when you suffer something, think that God is basically trying to make me understand that follow a spiritual path. So, and by doing this, now we have been talking of ultimate abode, Param Dham, the supreme abode. Where is the supreme abode? Where is this Param Dham? कोई कहता है वो बैकुंठ के अंदर है जी, बैकुंठ जहाँ विष्णु भगवान रहते हैं, वो परम धाम है. इनफैक्ट दिस इज ऑल फिगरेटिव. परम धाम का मतलब है सुप्रीम ब्लिस, दैट यू हैव अ डिवाइन ब्लिस, eternal peace, and this abode is beyond this physical world. It is parlaukic. It is spiritual realm. And where is it? It is within your heart. It is basically the Param Dham is nowhere. It is within your heart. So once you realize yourself, once you reach the stage of self-realization, that is a Vaikunt, that is a Param Dham where you reach. So that's the ultimate this thing. Then now from 16th onwards, Lord Krishna will start describing about the Brahmlok, the duration of this Brahmlok, how do we reach Brahmlok, how long it starts, Satyug, Kalyug, etc. So this description will be from Shlok 16 till the end of the chapter, which I will take up in my next talk. And for today, This is, I think, enough, and thank you very much for listening to me.